AI is multiplying the pieces of information we have available. It's impossible to stop this process. Everyone is generating so much content. And this means reducing the level of importance we give to content and the fact that we'll get more and more redundant content, meaning piece of content that seems to be similar and then you read it and 90% of the piece is exactly something that you already know because you've been reading many other places. So like the thing that I think will be more and more relevant is the redundancy of information and the energy we have to spend trying to figure out what is redundant for us. AI could do that, but at the end of the day, it's always on us. And it's a huge load of cognitive effort.
Welcome back to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. I'm Kendra Chapman, your host, and this is the space where we interview fascinating people who share their strategies on ways to go slow in a fast-paced world. Joining me today, Concetta Cucchiarelli from Italy is a focus and attention strategist. In this conversation, we dive into how each of us develops strategies for focus. Some that serve us, and some that lead us into complete distraction. And because the truth is, if you're getting distracted consistently, that's a pattern. Because at the end of the day, attention is how we show love. Let's dive in. Before we dive in to your story and what you do in the world, can you just share a little bit about what you do to go slow to go fast?
Oh, that's a good question. What I do is literally slowing down. As my husband always says, like if you slow down, like physically have to pay attention, you have more time to pay attention to things. All the damages that you can do are very reduced because you have time to react, you have more time to do everything. So literally it's slowing down. So cover the same space in a bigger amount of time, taking more time to do everything. And it's actually really working. So when I'm kind of rushing, I remember I tell myself, slow down. And that really it's a huge help.
Yes. And I think we can tell ourselves to slow down, but do you have any strategies that are a go-to for you to do that?
So yes, there are different. So actually you can, first of all, you can choose like an anchor or something that can remember you to slow down. As simple as that. But also one thing that I noticed, for example, that is more related to my research is that we sync to the speed of what's around us. So it can be as simple as like, I don't know, if you, for example, are eating with someone and you have someone in front of you, you can tell that you are like more agitated or more anxious if they are like eating very fast. And that's true for everything. Also, if you walk alongside someone else and this person is kind of walking fast, you end up walking fast. And this happens for everything. Like also the thing we are exposed to, like the sounds, the music is like a huge thing because we have this tendency to sync with everything that is around us, no matter if it's some music or just a rhythm. And I started paying attention to this, like seeing what is happening. Also, I notice the same when I type on the keyboard. And if I type very fast, I get sync to that kind of rhythm. And I'm like, why? I'm doing this so fast. No one is running after me. So one thing that I start doing is like giving this moment of reset during the day or when I'm working on a task and just to check what is something that is possibly making me sync. And it's with people and with sound around me. Yes, it's just, I have also something on the Apple Watch, for example. Let's say it's like a reminder for let's say reflection or meditation, but it's something that
Mm-hmm.
I have every hour, for example. And
Oh.
that moment will be like 1 minute, not more than 1 minute. But just to go through and say what I can be synced to, which can be fine because sometimes it's something that it really slow you down, but sometimes it's not. It's exactly the opposite. So
Yeah.
yes, that's mainly like the biggest part. So for example,
Mm.
another thing that is really fun is like listening to the message, vocal message at a higher speed. Because it seems that, for example, if you listen to like a WhatsApp or this kind of messages faster, you save some time. Or like video, like YouTube videos, for example, it's counterintuitive, but you're not saving time because, yes, technically you covered the same content in a shorter amount of time. But the effect that you have by listening someone speaking very fast tells your brain, hey, you have to hurry. You have to hurry. And usually when our brain listens to something like this, it goes like something is about to happen, something I have to hurry because otherwise something happens. So we actually save time, yes, but we train ourselves to stay alert. And this is not really helpful for us.
And that reminds me, there's a commercial that is played in the US. I don't know if they're playing it in other countries, but it's about a husband who he's doing errands for his wife, and she comes on the speaker in the car and she reminds him that there's a book club that night, just to remind him that, have you read the book? And he's like, yes, and he hadn't. And so as he's finishing his errands, he puts the book on like hyperspeed, and it's Tale of Two Cities. You can't read that book that fast. And I'm just like, okay, that is what you just said in a nutshell. It's like we think we have to go go go, but our brain doesn't isn't
Yeah.
programmed to think
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's at least two level of problems. The first one is really the sound of the content. So if we remove the content and we just consider the sound, the prosody, the rhythm, and everything, we already get that feeling of hurry, of lack of time. And this is not okay. And second, I mean, we have to figure out which is the goal, because if the goal is go to your wife and say, yes, I did it, you see, I did it, in that case, it's okay. But still, if you want to retain some kind of content or learn something, like the time we need to process information is always the same. We cannot speed up that process. So it's not really helpful. I mean, it give us maybe the feeling that we are doing more, but that's literally it.
So you have actually been working with people to find a way to be more focused
Mhm.
and to sustain their focus for longer periods of time. Can you talk to us a little bit about your framework?
Yes. So, like the basic of my framework is that it works on different levels for sure, because like the thing that I listen to the most is like, yeah, focus is not about motivation. Focus is not about willpower. Focus is not, but then you realize that focus is all of these things together. So what does the framework? It builds like a good structure where all these elements come together and they sustain all the different elements of focus, because for sure focus is related to motivation. It's related somehow to the idea of interest, and we can unpack this word in very different way. So interest can be go to your wife and say, yes, I read the book, or it can be for social proof, or it can be because you're genuinely interested in. So if you can build these things intentionally, then focus can thrive because you're building the, let's say, the ground for having something like this. And of course, you want to take into account also the way you are related with, you are grounded in your environment and what's around you. Because of course, like the famous Maslow pyramid is something that we want to take into account, because if we struggle to stay, to survive, and to feel safe, of course, we have no room at all for focus. So we want to take care also of that very basic level and build on top of it without forgetting anything. Because, for example, the idea I have of myself being able to do something, of course, affect my focus. Also, my identity perceived, of course, affect my focus. So when we can work at all these levels so that they are aligned, then focus, it's easier to get. I mean, you cannot do anything else that focus on something. Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I do think about that often, especially when, I mean, more in the education space in my previous work. But, if people's basic needs aren't met, then they're not going to be able to focus on those higher levels, like you say. But do you feel like there are any misconceptions about our attention span these days?
Well, a lot.
Mm,
So first of all, I think that there is some kind of misconception about the whole idea. First of all, the idea of attention span. Because if you look at someone with their own phone in their hand and you look at them, they can stay like sit still the whole time. So if you look at them out from outside, the outside, you see this person locked into this device. So that's attention span. They can control themselves. They can stay sit or just walking without paying attention to anything else. That's attention. Then if you think about what they are watching at, maybe it can be different pieces of information, but the process is exactly the same. So it depends on how you measure attention span and on what. Because if you measure on content, then it's very short. But if you measure it on the fact that you are actually scrolling on one phone, on one chair, on the same place, that's another level. So this is the first thing. So if we are measuring how much time we stay on a piece of content, of course, this is becoming shorter and shorter. But at the same time, it's also true that we are exposed to an incredible amount of content, of information in general. So what we notice, what we think is attention span, I think it's something else. We are not paying attention to that. We are just filtering out. And as long as until we find a piece that tells us, now you can pay attention because this is interesting. Otherwise, we are not paying attention. So the thing that they are measuring, I think it's another activity. It's like the span that we spend filtering out. So that's why I don't consider like actually the famous 8-second attention span, but it's more the time we spend, the time we need to figure out if something deserves attention or not. So it's a little bit different. Also because the content has changed and also the source of the content has changed. Like, I don't know, 100 years ago, for example, you had one book if you were lucky to have that book. I remember my grandpa always telling me, if you find like a piece of paper on the ground, just pick it because it could be something important. Nowadays, it will be like, I don't need it. It's so much. Also, this leads me to consider also the way we consider attention nowadays. That is kind of cognitive centered, and it's just like, okay, we always analyze everything from a cognitive perspective, but it's not complete if you don't consider also the fact that once something is abundant, it changed the value. So if something is abundant, doesn't have the same value of a book 30 years ago. So we cannot really compare what we are doing because we are not dealing with the same good, the same element. So that's also really, really important. Nothing is so important. We have too much.
Yeah,
Or
that brings up a good point because I think you're bringing up the fact that we have so many choices now of what to consume, and we can go deeper on a subject than we used to be able to because we might have only had access to one book, like you said, on a topic,
exactly.
whereas we can go down a black hole on that topic and go to all these other, you know, different types of sources for a while until we realize, oh my gosh, 3 hours have passed. So our attention span really, it's tied to interest level and maybe, you know, the depth and breadth of what we're
Yeah,
consuming.
definitely. That's why, for
Mm,
example, important. After all, focus is a decision. It's nothing more than a decision, either conscious or unconscious, because it depends on the level, but it's a decision. And if we keep making decision and remaking the decision and remaking the decision, of course we cannot focus on something. I always think about attention like trust. Like when you trust someone, when you have faith on something, it's just decided it has to be like this. You cannot go back and re-question. And the same it's with focus. But if we have a lot of information, as you said, as you mentioned at the beginning, if you go to the superstore and you have to buy some, like just two things, you go there and you have like a million of products. Hey, hey, pick me, pick me, pick me. Of course, you have to say, do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? And that will be just one level. Then you have to start saying, I don't need this. I don't need this. And you have to fight to filter out all these. Of course, you are going to forget what you decided in the first place. So it's really a matter of understanding, like the core is try to understand how can I stick with the decision I made? How can I remember the decision? And now I can remember also why I took in the first place, that I made in the first place that decision. So that's why it comes back to interest, to relevance for us, for example, because we stick with something that is relevant for us. And we forget also why it's relevant. So it is always a matter to go back and remember I choose this because it's important because of this. And it's actually a very active process. And that's also one thing that is related to what you asked before, like strategies to sorry, what we get wrong often about focus is that we think that is something passive. Something that is there, we have it, we're born with focus, we should have it. Like the normal thing is like that attention is working. The not normal thing is that is not working, but actually it's the opposite when we have so many options, of course.
yeah, I mean, like you said, you go to the grocery store and it is designed to get you to buy more than what you plan to. And so you just have to be aware not to fall into that, I guess,
Exactly.
consumer trap. And when we go on the internet, if we're searching for a particular article or topic or whatever our task is, we just have to be aware and stay right with
Yeah,
our decision.
exactly.
Yeah. And it
Exactly.
sounds simple. It sounds so simple. Like we just have to know and focus and do. But we have so many more choices these days. So we have to be thinking about what we have more discernment and making our choices. Do you feel like there's anything that we need to think about as far as AI is concerned in this conversation as well, as far as focus?
Well, I think that there are a lot of things to take into account. I mean, there will be a lot changing, I think, and a lot we cannot even not even predict because it's really impossible. But there are a couple of things that I think can be relevant. The first one is that, of course, AI is multiplying the pieces of information we have available. Like it's impossible to stop this process. Everyone is generating so much content. And this means also like reducing the level of importance we attribute to content, and the fact that we'll get more and more redundant content, meaning piece of content that seems to be similar, like relevant, and then you read it, and 90% of the piece is exactly something that you already know because you've been reading many other places. So, like the thing that I think will be more and more relevant is the redundancy of information and the way and the energy we have to spend trying to figure out what is redundant for us. Because again, also AI could do that, but at the end, like the last piece of the process, it's always on us because AI can tell something that you want to filter out. You can say, tell me what, just give me just this piece of information and filter by, and we can say how it has to filter out. But then the last part, it's related to something that we cannot tell because it's related to our body living in the environment, in the situation, and it's always changing. So at the end of the day, it's always on us, and it's a huge load of cognitive effort, and that's for sure. And then another thing that is related to AI is that we are getting used to have always an answer available. So we don't have nurture our ability to stay in the uncertainty space where we don't know what is happening. We don't have an answer. We have to come up with different options. We don't need that because we know the answer. Oh, I don't know this. I'm going to look for it. I don't understand this, and we can look for it. So we don't practice the idea of staying in the uncertainty, but actually is there that you come up with other possibility, is there that you become creative and you figure out things that no one else can figure out other than you because everyone is different. So
And
yeah,
see, I
that
think, yeah, I want to lean into that comment a little bit more because I have 11-year-old boys and they get so bored so quickly when they don't get to be on a device. But I know as an educator, that's where the creativity can happen.
yeah,
So I know there's a point where they need to be bored for so long, and
yeah,
then they'll start either making up a game or they will find something to do. They will go outside. They will be imaginative. They'll go back to that traditional play that kids need to do. But
yeah,
as adults, we need to be remembering that too, like you said, because we're so easily, you know, able to find the answer to whatever
yeah,
we need. We
yeah,
can order the thing that we need and have it delivered like that. We can find the thing on the internet that we think is a primary source of information. And like you said, it may not be. We need to be more discerning on that. But it's just fascinating to me that we need to be thinking about the uncertainty more.
yeah, yeah. Because I think the as you said, for example, you have your children and they have to, like, the process is the most important part because of course they can go on the internet and they can ask, what can I do without a device? And you have a list of games, whatever you can do. But the very process of thinking yourself what I can do with my resources in this moment is the real value, because there you are training, you are developing some skills that is just that the moment where you can train this. And it's not if you think just about the result, of course, let's have a look here and let's get the answer. But then, like, you are not really nurturing some skills that are part of your life, of course. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
something.
that's That's something to think about. Okay. So, thinking about listeners and viewers out there right now who are wanting to be more focused, they are interested in ways to probably be more productive. And I think we need to kind of also think about less is more
Mhm.
in the way of, like you've been saying, is really thinking about ways to filter information out. And AI is a tool. We can use AI, but when we get down to the ground level of how we can kind of realign our focus, what would be the first few steps that you would offer to those listeners and viewers out there to refocus and reset?
Yes, so I have a trick that I always say, and it's very very simple. The first thing that you want to say is like ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I working on? And if you cannot answer this question in less than 2 seconds, it means that you don't know what you're doing. So if you don't know what you're doing, how can you expect to be focused on something? I mean, if I tell you, focus on what's around you, I can just go like this, what? If I say focus on that clock, it's easy. So often we tend to think that it's a problem of lack of attention, but actually we haven't made any decision, or we forget what we are doing. So the option can be that you don't remember actually, because a lot of you've been seeing a lot of product in the supermarket and you totally forgot what you went there for in the first place. So, and it's exactly the same with tasks. And life happens, of course, so it's normal that you forget. So, or it can be that you are focused on too many things. So you go, what are you working on? This and this and this and this. And that's too much to generate focus. So what you want to do is like ask this. You can also write somewhere this question, and every time you go to the kitchen, or every time you sit down, you have that question visible, and you want to say, I need to answer. I need to be able to answer to these questions, to this question in less than 2 seconds. Otherwise, the problem is not focus. The problem is about the decision. I don't know what I'm doing. So this is very, very important. And since we are very affected by like all this new information, which is not bad. I mean, the fact that we are exposed and we are reacting to this kind of new information is a good process, because it means that we are alive and we are always updated, and this is a huge advantage, of course, in terms of survival. But then we want to also mitigate this thing. So one super silly but also super important thing is you have to write down every time what you are doing. Even if you go on the internet and you say, I want to look for, I don't know, I have to buy a chair for my desk and I'm going to search for chairs. I always have this habit to write down, I'm looking for a chair, because otherwise you go there and you start seeing something else, something pops up, an email, this and this, and this is fine. Just keep going. But as long as you have somewhere to go back to when you get lost, because it's nice to get lost, because if something is important and pops up and you're just ignoring it, you ignore it, it's not okay for you, but you want to have a place to go back immediately. So always do this check. What am I doing? And also have the answer. So the more visible is the answer, the better, because it's easier to
Hmm.
go back. It's normal to get distracted, but it's easier to go back. And I really write down literally everything, because it's really the only way to stay aware, but then
Hmm.
go always back to what is important and what you decide to do.
Mm.
So yes, that would be the main.
So just asking yourself the focus for the day or that morning or whatever your tasks are. What am I doing? today.
Yes,
Do
always.
you suggest that people do like almost like a brain dump, or make a list of all the things that you want to get done and then maybe pare that down to a certain number? Do you have any kind of suggestions on that?
I think that's important. I really believe like the brain dump is always useful because
Mhm.
one thing that can steal your focus is like all the things that you're trying to remember that you don't want to lose and while doing something else. So that's why,
Mhm.
for example, in my framework, a huge part is writing down all the distractions instead of saying, "Oh, I don't want to, I don't need to, I want to be indestructible." No, no, you want to like really acknowledge everything because
Mhm.
that's a very important piece of information. Because if something comes up for sure it has a message and you want to take it, so you want to write down everything because you don't want to forget, and maybe that things that you write down are not important anymore just for the fact that you wrote it down. So that's really a huge part of freeing up space in your mind. Yeah, the brain dump is it's beautiful. Yes.
And do you have any particular, I guess, within your framework, do you suggest a certain method to kind of go back and review? Do you build in any kind of celebration or time to kind of reflect? Like, how do you have your protocol set up?
So this is interesting. Like, well, it depends. It depends on what you want to do. Like, if you want to keep track of the task that you finished, or if you want to kind of reflect on the way you focus. So there are two different things. One is on the result, and one is on the behavior, the performance in itself. How did I manage to deal with distractions in this, like, while doing this task? So in that case, yes, there are reflections that you can do mainly on like how you've been working, the setting, but also not only the setting, so the environment, the tools you had, the devices you used, but also the perception of yourself related to the task. Because for example, we are more focused on something that is a bit easier for us but not too easy, or it's something that doesn't really interest us, or something that we have to do, or just because we have a deadline. So all this kind of information helps us because, for example, a lot of people work better with deadlines. So when the deadline is really close, they are super focused, like, but 1 week before, totally not. So in that case, it's interesting to notice this kind of elements because we can use it. So we can like trick our brain using this kind of strategies. About the result, I don't believe too much in celebration because I mean, yes, you can celebrate if it's something big, good or big. But for example, personally, I never celebrate stuff because I always think that if I do something and I enjoy it, the celebration is doing the thing. It's it the thing. I don't have to separate like the doing from the celebrating. It's like a pleasure doing things.
Mhm.
And here one thing that is important to understand is not that I think that you have to enjoy everything you do, but it's more than you have to be able to see in everything you do how this is related to you. Even the most boring thing, if it serves you to move towards something that is more important or to do something that is important for you or for another person, the very fact that it's related somehow to you, it makes the thing like worth it. So it's not that you're always, oh, I love this, oh, I love this, or I'm super passionate, but you can see that serves you somehow.
Mm.
So I always think that the celebration is in the process. Like the real victory is when you can enjoy the process. That's the beauty of like that. That's also the goal of using the framework, like giving you that kind of feeling of doing something that is important to you. So instead of the celebration, for me, it's more important to fix the feeling. So if you are able to perceive that kind of accomplishment, that kind of being related to something, perceive the why, it's way more important to notice that feeling and somehow anchoring that feeling instead of going for a glass of wine or I don't know, like
Yeah.
something that can be like a classic celebration. Yes. Or
Hmm.
saying, oh, yes, I did something good.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's totally flipping the carrot. We don't have to have a carrot to do the work. The work is the carrot. We should enjoy the process.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. I mean,
okay.
it's something that I think that is totally doable because
Hmm.
if you show people how to do it, then it's kind of it's also too easy somehow. But yeah, it's just so you have to think about that and then you can do it.
That brings up a good point. So, Concetta, how do you or how do you work with clients? What services do you offer? I want to make sure that we get all your the ways in which people can connect with you in our show notes. But what services do you provide your clients?
Well, so far I've been focused mainly on one to one. So I've been working only with people one to one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I'm doing a bit less lately. So I created the workbook, uh, which is this one. Is the
Mm-hmm.
it's a workbook that is based on my framework. So it's a way to let people do the work by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, like following that workbook, they have like daily sessions where they can practice exactly this idea of putting all the elements together. So, like willpower, passion, all this kind of stuff, set the best start for a focus session. And then that's kind of natural. That is how it happens. And also, there is every day like a logging off part because what happens sometimes is that if you focus too much on something and you get absorbed, then it's difficult to close that session and start
Mm,
about something else. You kind of stay stuck in that task and that ideas. So it's really something that daily makes you start sustain and close the session. And then there
mm,
is an overarching also process that it's 4 weeks basically, where you day by day you also discover your own strategy. So what I was saying before, so for example, noticing if I work better when I have deadlines, and it's a guided observation of all the aspects that create your own strategy so that at the end you'll be able to say, hey, this is my blueprint, like focus blueprint. So I've been noticing that I work better with this and this and this and this and this. And you start not building an habit because an habit is something that is automatic, but it's more about building the ability to observe yourself. And when you have that ability, then you can tweak, you can change, you can adjust, and that's it. So basically, I have the workbook and also I have in person events that are called Focus Gym. Mainly, these events are for teams. So for company, for example, and companies, and also for a group, like a small group of solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, like people who are used to work alone and that want to work together, but actually work. Instead of networking, just sit down and work. And it's something that I'm doing here, of course, in the Netherlands, but I'm about to license the framework and also the methodology so that everyone can be trained and do it. Because I really think that the in person element, like especially the focus of the group, is something that really nurture your own focus. So not the online feeling of course you have everything online, but also I really believe that like focus is like the basic of my framework and also my research is that when we are connected, safe and connected, we work better. And it's actually the opposite of what I'm seeing, because everyone starts thinking that in order to be focused, you have to shut down the world and stay with your own brain and closed in your room and with your headphones. So yeah, see that it's actually building the opposite. Yes.
I love that your approach, it seems to really focus more on that interdependence with teams or even individuals, collaborating with somebody else, because that way, one, there's independent piece to where they're doing some self-discovery or maybe reevaluating their work habits, but then also learning how to work together with others, which I think is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can be very, very good at staying isolated and ignoring the rest. But then our life is not made for ignoring stuff. It's made for
No.
connecting to everything, especially people around us, because there you see opportunities and grow and everything. So
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners and viewers before I let you go?
Good question. I think, yeah, one quick piece of suggestion is that, no, one piece of advice is that we often think if I tell you, think about a focused person and you close your eyes, you have a very classic image, and we all have it. And actually, we use that image to, like, as an ideal. So every time we judge ourselves, we tend to judge based on that idea, but actually, attention and focus don't have actually a representation. So the best thing we can do to become more focused is not to have an ideal vision of focus and attention, because we can be very focused on something and stay very, very attentive and not look like an focused person. So we really want to break this idea that we have an ideal of a focused person, like a person that doesn't have any attention, distraction, that is indestructible, is like, it's not that. We are not supposed to be that. And one thing that I always suggest people is that every time we tell ourselves, oh, I cannot, for example, read for more than an hour, I cannot stay focused on something for more than, I always tell them, go to another person like your husband, and ask them, can you do this? And the answer will be mainly, most of the time, will be, no, I cannot, because maybe we really have this ideal person that is always that is able, who is able to do some everything, but actually it's not the reality. And if we talk with people, we can understand that no one is like that. It's just someone, it's something built in our mind, and we are struggling to be something that is not even real, it is not even possible. So it's always good to resize our expectation, because they are actually not real.
I love that. We need to resize our expectations because we probably have this superhuman, unrealistic idea in our
Exactly.
mind of what we should be doing. And really, we just need to be working on what we can do well.
Yeah, exactly. And asking
Mm.
people, because we realize that we are more
Hmm.
the same.
Yeah. And we're so much better when we are working together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time, Concetta. And I just
Thank
enjoy
you.
saying your name. And I think you're doing great work in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was beautiful talking with you.
Well, that's it for today's episode of the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, I hope that you take a moment to reflect on your own, about your own patterns of focus and where you may operate on autopilot. Concetta reminds us that focus isn't about more discipline or removing everyday distraction, because that's going to happen. It's about understanding the strategies that we've learned and choosing the more intentional ones. So when we slow down and become aware, we create the space to build focus that's sustainable, aligned, and actually supportive of the life that we want to live. Thank you for joining me on the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. And if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And I would love for you to leave a review either on Apple or Spotify. That would be amazing. And share it with someone who needs it, because together we're going to continue to find ways to go slow so that we can all truly go fast together. So until next time, take a deep breath, slow down where you can, and keep moving forward with intention. And remember, the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast, and thanks for listening.